choice.
Go ahead.
Okay. This was my first choice, but after consulting with my fearless leader, Phyllis, I didn't think it would generate more discussion. So I changed it back to my first choice, which was Juneteenth, uh, being made to be a federal holiday. I hope we were right, and it will generate much discussion. Uh, I chose this topic because Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1863. Due to poor communication or lack of it, it did not reach the Galveston, Texas until 2 years after it became law. The news was delivered by Union troops on January 19th, 1865, 2 years later. Okay. Um, these are the ground rules and format for the whole the meeting. Um, Erace is the slogan of a group, Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all colors with love and respect. Join us. Um, we're going to introduce ourselves. I'm Marva. I will be your facilitator this morning. Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I've been coming to Erace since last summer when I was introduced to the group by my friend Louise. I'm in Austin, Texas, and Louise is on vacation, I believe, in Florida right now, so she's not going to be joining us as far as I know. But I've been enjoying the conversations we have here, and I thank everybody for the discussion.
Nora.
Bridge in the back.
Trying to unmute myself. Hi, I'm Nora. I'm a first timer. Michelle let me know about this meeting. I live in Austin. I started a book club through Meetup called Colors Book Club, where we just read selections about race and culture. And I think it's been going for a little over 2 years now. And it's a great group, and I'd welcome anybody to come on board. Nice to see all you.
Welcome. Peter.
Unmute.
I can't hear you.
You have to unmute.
Peter Martinet, a little spastic when it comes to technological things. I'm a newcomer. Hello.
Thank you. Lynetta.
It's noisy over here where I am. I've been a member since I was an intern.
Amal.
Yes, good morning. I'm Amal, and I've been a member since 1997.
Pedro. Pedro.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Pedro in Austin. Been coming to the Erace meetings It's approaching probably a year. I think started last summer. So I really enjoy the information and the perspectives that are provided. So thanks for having me.
Glenn?
Good morning. I'm Lynn Frank. I'm happy to be with you this morning.
Phyllis?
Good morning. My name's Phyllis. I've been coming since 2008, and I'm looking forward to today's conversation. Thanks.
Cheryl?
Good morning, everyone. I am back from a trip across the United States. I drove out from California with my best friend from Brownies. And I've been happily attending in 2005. I started coming, and then I lost track of y'all, and I guess it's the beginning of this year, and glad to be with you. Good morning.
Welcome back. Greer Gilliman? Greer? Next, Glenn?
Good morning, Glenn Abdullah. I've been coming since 1994. Glad to be with you this morning.
Glad to have you. Greer?
My name is Greer Gilliman. I've been coming since post-Katrina. I try to pop in now and then, but due to the COVID lag, sometimes I just can't make it with you guys, but I'm glad to be here today.
Welcome back. Okay. You heard my introduction, why I chose this topic at the beginning.
Nancy didn't introduce herself.
Oh. Who didn't introduce? Oh, Nancy, forgive me. You before me. I went left and right instead of going left. Okay, Nancy, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Nancy Moore. I've been coming to Erace since June of 2007. So this is my 14th year. Okay.
Oh, thanks for that tidbit. Nancy is our host. Nancy, will you be keeping the list?
Huh?
Phyllis.
No,
Phyllis?
you're the facilitator. What do you mean?
Oh,
You keep the list. The hosting is just to do with Zoom.
oh, okay.
And I'm host now because I do the recording.
Okay. I shared with you why I chose the topic. Could this be the catalyst for more change, more movement to us people of color to access equal justice, equal education, health and housing, and equal access to economical wealth? Many other things can be the motivation to move on and achieve these things. Let me hear from you. The list is open.
Barbara, did you say how the list works?
Oh,
Thanks.
Raise one finger to get on the list, two fingers if you have a question to the speaker that's just made a statement. And if you can wave your hand across the screen, because some backgrounds are not easily picked up. Okay, the list is open. Oh, Nancy. Anybody else?
Greer has her hand up.
Okay, I can see Greer.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I'm going to start off by being very controversial in the sense that it- I have very mixed feelings about the Juneteenth holiday, because I feel that there are more important things than a holiday. I feel like it was a pacifier. We need police reform. We need to stop voter suppression. We need reparations, or if not reparations, we need some form of to level the playing field on wealth equity, being that this country was built on the backs of slaves. And CBS Sunday Morning did a segment about how what they calculated reparations to compensate descendants of slaves would be roughly $300,000 per person, and it would break the country to do so. And so I feel like there's a song by Tracy Chapman called Bang, Bang, Bang. I don't know if anyone's heard it, but there's a line in there where they say, "We'll give him drugs and give him candy, and he will never come for us." And that's what I feel like this holiday is doing. It's giving us drugs and candy to silence us for all the other things that are wrong in this country and need to be addressed and something needs to be done about police reform and just to host critical race theory. I mean, all these other things that are going backwards instead of going forward. And the most you can come up with is a holiday, which probably most of the country will not celebrate unless you work for the federal government. You may get a sale out of it. So I don't mean to be so negative. A Juneteenth sale, I mean, people are gonna figure out a way to make money. So I don't mean to be so negative, but I just don't think that a Juneteenth holiday is what the country needed at this time.
Thank you, Nancy.
Amal's got his hand up inside Zoom, and I just want to tell y'all I'm the only one who can see when you raise your hand that way. So if you want to use your actual hand.
There you go.
Okay. Greer followed by Amo. Anybody else want to join the list at this time? Okay, Greer.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I agree totally with Nancy, and I felt the same way. First, people have been celebrating Juneteenth for quite some time now. So the government wants to get on this. I think it was to placate us. Like Nancy said, we need an anti-lynching bill. We need to stop voter suppression. We need a Black hate bill. Really, what I think this was a way to say, hey, we gave y'all something. But America always gives us what we never asked for. We're dying of thirst. We done ran 1,000 miles. I come to you and say, I'm thirsty. You give me cornbread. I think this was a way to pad what was to come, like the George Floyd verdict. I think it also had to do with the fact that they were going to start prosecuting people so-called for the insurrection at the Capitol, which the first person got charged got probation. Now, if I was to go to a post office and trespass somewhere, I'd probably go to jail. It wouldn't be a drawn out trial. This is to placate us as a people. Again, whatever we ask for, we don't get, but they're going to give us what they want to give us. And that's basically how it works. That's it.
Thank you, Greer. The list, Amo, and the list is open.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So yeah, I think historically Black people, we've gotten so used to trinkets. And when we get these trinkets, we get so happy and so gung-ho that the US government realized that if we just keep giving them trinkets, they'll be satisfied with just that. And so Juneteenth is another one of those trinkets that we've gotten historically to keep us pacified and quiet. That way, when the real issues are raised, such as reparations, then the government will look at us like, but we just gave y'all Juneteenth. What else do you want? And so that becomes the catalyst to keep reparations and other important issues off the table, because after all, we just gave y'all Juneteenth. Y'all asking for something else? We didn't ask for Juneteenth, like Greer just said. At least I didn't. As a matter of fact, when the snapshot came across my telephone and I looked on my phone, I'm like, Juneteenth is a holiday? Like, what? Why is that such a surprise? Because Black people have been celebrating this for a very long time. Now the country wants to jump on the bandwagon. I was actually shocked that it was considered a federal holiday, because I didn't know that anybody was asking for it to become one. So that lets me know that not too many people even knew about or was asking for this to become a national holiday. And for whatever reason, the president decided to make it that. That's a decision that he made. But where's the reparations? When's that conversation going to be a federal conversation and not something like a trinket such as Juneteenth?
Thank you, Amal. Am I allowed to question Amal?
Please ask them all a question.
Do you think passing as a federal holiday will come with federal holidays like paid holidays all over the United States? Some states, I feel like they won't comply and respect it as a federal holidays where people get paid to be off. Do you think that it comes with all the perks of a federal holiday?
It may very well do. And like you said, all states might not recognize it. For a very long time, Arizona didn't recognize Martin Luther King birthday as a holiday. So it really we're not going to know that until time progresses. And as time progresses, we'll find out, who's getting what. But honestly, none of that is of any importance to me. It's all about, when are we going to have the conversation on reparations? When that conversation is on the table, then let's talk. But Juneteenth, I'm not interested.
Oh, thank you, Amal.
Marva Greer had her hand up again, and Glenn, I think you saw him.
Yes.
Is Leonetta's hand up? Yeah, Leonetta has her hand up.
Oh, Leonetta, angle your camera better. Okay, we have Phyllis, followed by Glenn, Greer, and Leonetta. Okay, Phyllis, you have the.
Thanks. I agree with everything that's been said so far, and I would like to add that it's also maybe not purposefully, but having Juneteenth as a federal holiday allows white supremacists to say, "Oh, look, you've got this. Why are you complaining? You've got this holiday," and so, like with a federal holiday, and the day off really only applies officially to federal employees. It doesn't apply to everybody. If a state decides it, then that works a different way, So it might just be state employees then in individual states. So, or it could be just, whoever. I have a friend who asked me a couple of Fridays ago, the Friday before Juneteenth, she's like, do y'all have today off? She works from home here, but her company is based somewhere else. So I thought she meant because we had a storm coming. And then I thought it was for Pride. And then it was realizing her company gave her Juneteenth off, even though it's not a federal holiday. So, I mean, it is a federal holiday. It's not a federal company. So obviously there are some places going to do that, but I don't think having a paid day off from work is enough to make up for centuries of oppression.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Phyllis. Next, we have Glenn.
Well, you know, well, first of all, I'm gonna say something about Joe Biden signing the bill. Joe Biden did not make this bill. He only signed it. And I don't think it was white people who brung this up. I think it was African Americans who wrote this bill. And I'm like many of you, it don't make sense to me. There are much more things that has happened in our lives that are more important than June 13th, if you want to celebrate a holiday. First, the emancipations, I mean, the emancipation is more important than June 13th. The Civil Rights Bill, of which I was in the time and witnessed the great change, what it meant to us, is more of a, should have been considered first before you consider June 13th. And like us, you know, when you're dealing with emotional people, you know, they just deal with your emotion. It's not rational. And also, as a people, not talking about everyone, but as a people, we reparations wouldn't benefit us at all. That money would be right back in the hands of the people who gave it to us within 1 year, and we'll be saying it wasn't enough. We'd be buying the Cadillacs and all these things that no investment, just frivolous things. Nothing to put you on your feet and your children and your grandchildren for a future. It will just all be squandered on foolishness. Not saying everyone.
Thank you, Glenn. Your time is up. Would you be willing to get on the list again? I see you, Nancy. I see you anxious to ask Glenn a question. Would you like to be on the list again, Glenn?
No, not unless they say something that, you know, I don't like what they said, you know, I'll get back on it.
Okay, thank you for your documentary. Nancy, you have the floor.
Glenn, you know, if the government gave you 40 acres and a Dodge Ram, you don't think you could do something good with that?
See, the problem is you don't be listening to what I said. I say not all of us. You know, I wasn't including you in that bunch as being frivolous. You know, so, but as a whole, if you look at our conduct as a group, you know, I remember, in fact, one of Marva's neighbors, where she used to live at, she got the money from the flood, from Katrina, to fix up her house. She went by two expensive cars and left and didn't fix the house up. So I mean, it's things like that that many times is our judgment, the judgments that we make as a group that puts us in peril.
Thank you. Nancy, was you satisfied with Glenn's answer?
I mean, it is what it is.
Okay, thank you, Glenn, for sharing. I see you, Cheryl. I see Pedro.
I want to ask Glenn a question and I forgot. Is it
Oh.
two fingers?
2 fingers. Okay.
Okay. Glenn, I hope this works as it's like a clarifying question. You know, don't you think a lot of white people spend their money in stupid ways? I mean, isn't it a person's right to spend their money in any stupid way they want to? And why do we point it out when Black people do it? You know, all people of every descent do stupid ass things. That's just, do you have a comment on that, sir?
I would say that I would say that in today's world, that they're catching up with us in their stupidity, you know. But as a whole, it's no, they're not. They're not as they're. You see more investment, more thinking of investment. You're thinking more of the college, the college, the money saved for the sending child to college. We have ignorant things that we still say. Well, nobody left me nothing. I ain't gonna leave nobody nothing. That's some of the ignorant things that we say in the community, which you don't ever hear.
Thank you, Glenn. We have Greer on the list, followed by Leonetta, and Pedro, and Cheryl. Nancy. Okay, Greer, you have the floor.
Okay. This is what I don't get. People are celebrating the ending of slavery because of Juneteenth, and when slavery technically never ended. Because if you read the 13th Amendment, the United States Constitution provides that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Now, I just read that, and I want you to think about Black people's freedom since they were so-called let out of slavery. If you notice, with every change or benefit that we get is nullified. Think about it. People were freed. You had vagrancy laws that turns into convict leasing. Also, you have sharecropping, was basically servitude because the people could not get out of those contracts. But this is what the 13th Amendment says. Oh, everything is great. Let's even look closer to now and even back then, mass incarceration. That was done. All that was done to get our labor. You freed us, but technically you took it back. Because with disparity in sentencing, somebody can do the same crime, but my skin color is a crime in this country. So basically, all you're saying is, well, you're Black, I got you. Except as punishment for a crime. We were convicted of a crime when they brought the first enslaved person or the first indentured person who was turned into a slave for the audacity to want to be free. They made that man a slave for his lifetime. His Blackness was a crime. Like in the terms of the boxer, I forgot his name. I think it was Joe Johnson. They termed it an unforgivable Blackness. And that's what we're living right now, an unforgivable Blackness. That you still have to enact laws to protect me. And laws that are enacted aren't fully executed. My freedom is on the line every day. My life is on the line every day because of the color of my skin. But yet we got the 13th Amendment. I don't think so.
Thank you, Greer. Phyllis, I have you down. Next, is Leonetta, followed by Pedro, followed by Cheryl, Nancy, and Phyllis.
Hi, I just wanted to say that the people, a whole lot of Black organizations and Black legislatures were the ones that wanted this holiday. I just wanted to make that clear, that it wasn't, and in those circles, you would have heard people talking about getting this holiday enacted, and it just didn't happen under Biden. It's been talked about a lot. Also, reparations too has been talked about a lot. So we'll see what's going to happen with reparation. And I'm sorry, I'm just not cynical like Greer is. I think it should be celebrated. I don't see it as a trinket, but that's just how I feel.
Thank you. Um, Pedro, followed by Cheryl, Nancy, and Phyllis. Pedro, you have the floor. I see you, Lynn. Pedro?
Yeah, thank you. So I've been here for a year or so listening and learning, and I've always uh, appreciated the superhero Glenn's perspective. Um, and I'm sure that perspective comes from his life experience. But the life experience does not make science. And the Dr. William Darity and his co-author put out this this book not too long ago that I've referred to, From Here to Equality, and their work, their studies, their data completely dispel the idea that Blacks can't save. They actually do studies to show that Black people actually have saving patterns that exceed those of whites. So that's a myth. And these are the types of things that are, I think, really damaging for the status quo, so to speak, because they rationalize that everything that has occurred to Blacks is because mainly their own lack of volition, their own lack of motivation. And even President Obama would say the same thing. And with respect to the industriousness of a Black person. So in Darity's work and others, they show get equal education, still a head of household for a Black American that is a college graduate is 1/3 that of a white person that is a high school dropout. These are all, I mean, obviously everyone should get educated. It's not to say that you shouldn't get educated, but to make the inference that the burden is on the individual rather than on how society is profoundly systemic racist misses the boat. Lastly, I think Juneteenth, it's important holiday in that this discussion is going on, and this is the type of discussion that should dominate Juneteenth. It remind us every year of these contradictions that are still unaddressed. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Pedro. Next, we have Cheryl, followed by Nancy, Phyllis, and Lynn. Cheryl?
I appreciate that you picked this, Marva, because it left me with strange feelings about this being a celebrated national holiday, so to speak, a federal holiday, wondering how other people really felt about it. I have been aware of Juneteenth for a while now, probably since Katrina. And I really don't have friends in California, Black friends in California that make a big deal out of this holiday. I think sometimes they go to family gatherings at this time, and they don't even necessarily refer to it the same way. I looked it up. It really got me because 1862 in April is when the Emancipation, Proclamation, that seems like that's the holiday to me. So I appreciate everybody's feedback on it. I just did a quick little study on my phone and found out on January 4th, 2005, in the District of Columbia, the mayor made that Emancipation Day in 2005. And that's why we pay our taxes differently around the 15th because of that ruling. So there actually was a holiday for that. And it's celebrated, Emancipation Day is celebrated all over the world necessarily where enslavement happened to Africans. My family said the same thing that Glenn said. And Glenn, those are the people I'm referring to that make the stupid ass choices. They're my family. Nobody left me anything. I'll tell you what, that's the life I live. Those were the exact words out of my family's mouths. We're from back, what we call back east, the Missouri, Oklahoma area. This year on Memorial Day, I got to watch some great documentaries about Tulsa, Oklahoma, finding out that there were 20 places during the Red Summer that were brought down, 20 Black communities that were doing well. So people have made lots of money and it's been destroyed, and it continues to be destroyed, especially as long as we all agree on this, the incarceration system, the penal stuff happens the way that it does. So I guess I just really appreciate, last year I went to Natchez because they had a Juneteenth celebration and participated a little bit in that right along the bluff. This year they had a blues party, and on Juneteenth they had a white linen night. I thought that was really stupid. I didn't go to that one.
Thank you for sharing.
Marva Greer had her hand up.
So a little hand appeared in my box like this.
Yeah, oh good, you can see it, okay.
Yes, that's the first time. Thank you for sharing, Cheryl. And we have Nancy next, Phyllis, Lynn, Greer.
Okay, I want to follow up to what Cheryl said. I was going to bring up about different communities like Tulsa across the country where Black people after emancipation attempted to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, only to either be burned out. You've heard numerous stories about people who have saved money to move, to buy a house and move into a better neighborhood, only to be run off or have their house burned. So Black people, not all Black people do frivolous things, with their money. There's a book by J. California Cooper called The Wake of the Wind. It's a fictional account of what happened to the slaves after, what is it? A fictional account of a historical event of what happened to the slaves after emancipation. And routinely throughout the book, they refer to the fact that the gains and the things that they couldn't let white people know they could read or write. They couldn't do that. They had to play dumb because that was a crime to be able to read and write. You could not show your wealth because white people would come and burn you out if you had anything. So it's not necessarily always an example of, the case that we spend money on frivolous things. We spend money on what white people let us spend money on, unless you're willing to take that chance and be brave and move into that better neighborhood or that white neighborhood. You can have a car, but then you won't get a loan for a house. And if you do, you run the chance of being harassed. That still happens to this day, of being harassed if you move into a neighborhood where you're not accepted just because you want to better yourself. So that's not always the case. And then also, I wanted to throw out the question about, now I didn't actually hear this, one of my coworkers told me this, that, or maybe I heard it on the radio. I'm not sure how, I'm old. You get to the point, I don't know exactly how I heard this, but either I heard it on the radio or a coworker told me. That Tucker Carlson made a statement, an inflammatory statement, that Juneteenth is now going to replace July 4th. Now, why would you say something like that if you just did not want to get the right riled up, and, doing outrageous things because they feel something has been taken away from them, because now Juneteenth is a holiday and Tucker Carlson says it's going to replace July 4th. I would like to hear people's comments about that. But I see Glenn has two fingers up. So Glenn,
Yes.
What you got to say?
Well, I know you moved into a white neighborhood, and I don't believe that no Confederate flags was burnt on your lawn. But my question is this: so, have you ever been rejected for getting a loan to buy something because of your race?
No, I personally have not. However, I had members in my family who had difficulty. I had an aunt who was a domestic, and she finally saved up enough money to buy a house, and the people she worked for fired her when they found out that she bought a house. My uncle, who recently passed away, had difficulty getting a loan, had to move all the way out to Plainfield, New Jersey, because nobody would give him a loan in the, in Plainfield is kind of like south and where it's like closer to central Jersey. But anyway, he had difficulty. So yeah, I know of people. I personally, no, have not had a problem. No, I haven't. But I do know of people who have within my family, yes.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Glenn added you to the list. We have next Phyllis, Lynn, Greer, Glenn.
So first of all, Nancy, why would Tucker Carlson say something like that? Because he most of the time talks out of his derriere. So that's how he does. That's his main. Lynn likes that I use the French word, I think. But I also want to say, I like Nancy. I heard something, and I don't remember if it was a podcast or NPR, and I think it was just yesterday. So that's really bad. But they were talking about how white settlers here in this country tried to enslave and did enslave a lot of Native Americans. However, unlike the Africans, they could run away and had people to go to who would protect them. And so it occurred to me when I was listening to this that white people came here and couldn't develop a nation without enslaving other people. They couldn't do it. They had. I'm like, white people can't do anything without, burdening other people and oppressing other people. And then you might say, oh, well, what about Europe? Well, sure. When Europe was, up and coming, they had the feudal system where the upper class ruled over the lower class, and the serfs were not much better than slaves. So it's a similar situation. So, I can't remember what show or podcast I was listening to, but I can remember something I learned in school. So that's good. So and yeah, Tucker Carlson, I can't with him. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. We have Lynn, followed by Greer, Glenn.
You have to be suspicious when the vote in favor of Juneteenth was, I think, unanimous in the Senate, where that obstructor, Mitch McConnell, won't even let us vote on voting rights. And then in the House, there were only about 14 people who didn't vote for Juneteenth. So you have to be suspicious that they would let that pass and nothing else. No, we can't have infrastructure except for a token amount of money. No, we can't have voting rights. No, we can't have police reform. But yes, we can have Juneteenth. So that goes along with the trinket theory. Nevertheless, I think Juneteenth can be valuable. It is not only a day of celebration, but a day of remembrance. The article emphasized that it was a day of remembrance. And on Martin Luther King Day, there are discussions, there are programs in communities, there are wonderful documentaries on television for those who are willing to listen and look. The article goes on to discuss the irony of voting for Juneteenth, the day of remembrance, on practically the same day that states like Texas, Florida, and others are outlawing the teaching of anything about race. Well, they say we won't have critical race theory. Now, they have latched on to that expression. Nobody is trying to teach critical race theory. It is a kind of a complicated and esoteric thing, but people would like to have taught an understanding of equal rights for everyone and how those equal rights are not allowed under the way society is set up. So no one really wants critical race theory, but that sounds like a horrible, horrible thing when the Republicans and Tucker Carlson keep harping on it. Critical race theory, critical race theory. And people understand critical. Well, they must be criticizing us, the white people. So they're taking it out of context the same way they took defund the police out of context and said the people on the left and the Democrats hate the police and want to have anarchy. But the effect of these rules is that any teacher would be afraid to say anything. A teacher would even be afraid to say, we had slavery in this country until after the Civil War, because my God, it could be interpreted as critical race theory. I hope the ACLU will be challenging these laws as unconstitutional, overly broad, and too vague for anybody to even know what they're trying to do. But it's just incredible that students will not be allowed to know the history of their own country if legislators have their way.
Thank you, Lynn. We have Greer, followed by Glenn, Pedro. Anybody else? Nancy? And
Okay, I'm
it
ready.
is 10:57. We'll be closing out our list with Nancy.
Mhm.
Um,
I had been doing some reading. There's like over 21 documented massacres that I found post-slavery, which, I mean, the minute they free us, the people who were able to build anything, they want to take it away. And this is the thing. Everybody is affected by racism, whether you're on either side. And to think that you're not, and my issue is viewing your people in a certain way is your effect. The reason why you view your people that way, good or bad, is due to racism. I also, when I was like, I would just happen to just be online, and it was interesting. People who were able to buy houses, when it was time to sell them because they were Black, they lowballed them on their appraisals. It was like 5 different people I read stories about. But when they got white friends to pose as them, their appraisals went up over $150,000, $200,000. Now you've worked for something, you've saved for something, you've purchased something. And when you go to sell it because you are Black, it's not worth nothing. But again, people forget that the reason why you see your people the way you see them is not because of individual bad judgment, because that's the way our brains have shaped. You forget, we were born into a war that never ended. It's still going on today. People came back from Vietnam. People came back from World War II. People came back from World War I with post-traumatic stress disorder. So imagine what people who are born into a war, who've never known true good times of equality and just being able to live, even on a mental level. Nobody's unaffected by that. And your views are affected by that. That's it.
thank you, Greer. We have Glenn, Pedro, Nancy, and the list ends after Nancy.
This on this Zoom meeting that we have each and every week, I never see people try so hard to prove that they cannot make any progress in this country. Make it an art form. You know, when they tell their stories like, oh, well, they couldn't get along because of this, or somebody bought their house and the people fired them, as though it happened just 1 year ago, you know, not 100 years ago, or they weave in the past as though it's in the present. Like we have not made absolutely no progress in the country at all. And most of the people that's on here are successful. Nothing has stopped them. They are successful. But they tell a story as though they're as though that the country is stopping them from making progress. There was a time when I couldn't get along, but it was justified I couldn't get along. I wasn't qualified to get along. But if I want to get a house today or buy some investment property, I got all kinds of people trying to give me money to get it. But we are able to fight against our own progress. The answer is not going to come with people who have the power or have the better situation changing and giving you equal standing with them. That's something that you got to strive for. That's all I have to say.
Any questions? Okay. We have Pedro, followed by Nancy, and the list is closed.
Well, I would just say that the experience of African Americans in our country as a group of people is that clearly they have been victims of subprime mortgage rates. Okay, so yeah, one of us in this group or many of us in this group can succeed and all that stuff. But when you look at the overall disposition of African Americans when it comes to even mortgage rates, they're disproportionately given subprime mortgage rates. That's just something that you can look up and validate. So the thing that I wanted to mention was this thing about reparations not being affordable. That's another myth. The reparations are affordable, and reparations is not given something that's undeserved. It's a payment back to try to create that equal playing ground that Nancy alluded to at the beginning today, so that when we all have approximate resources that can meet basic needs, that type of thing, then that individual industry that Glenn talks about that is very important really can get some tread and traction and stuff. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention, if you just examine tax havens and offshore taxes and that type of thing, those trillions, not billions, trillions of dollars is the monies that help create that wealth inequality that if you research is unbelievable. And with respect to Haiti, they gained their independence in 1804. They fought all of the colonial powers, the French, the UK, even us as a burgeoning power, tried to put down that slave revolt. And the reason I bring that up is because not only was the Haitian revolt successful, but guess what? 20 years later, the French got reparations. They circled the country of Haiti and demanded reparations that they would not let them, they coerced Haiti into that lifetime debt. So reparations is something that's been given to the oppressing class, but whenever the oppressed class demands it as eloquently as Dr. Darity has put forth in his work, these false canards of it's not affordable, you're not a slave, so you shouldn't get it. These types of things distract us from the larger moral truth. So thank you for the discussion today.
Uh, Nancy gonna round us up. Nancy, you have the floor.
Oh, okay. Well, what I wanted to talk about, go back to what Glenn said about have you ever watched ID or CNBC American Greed? I mean, white people do some heinous stuff with money. Yeah, you need to, and the things that they do it over. So it's not just Black people that don't handle money well, okay? Or come up with get rich quick schemes and take advantage of people. It's not just Black people doing that, okay? Two, back to critical race theory, okay? That I remember being in an Erace meeting a couple of years ago and learning that the Statue of Liberty was given to the United States for the abolishment of slavery, and that the chains that were originally supposed to be able to be seen can only be seen at her feet, and it's on a 50-foot pedestal, so you can only see it from the air. And I clearly remember being in the 4th or 5th grade being taught that Statue of Liberty was given to the United States to welcome the immigrants from Europe. So if you have critical race, if the suppression of history is being taught, to me, that smacks of 1930s Germany. All right, to me, all right. I think that the people are shaping history and facts to be taught as they wanted to advance a particular viewpoint, which is counter to what obviously what actually happened and is in favor of a certain group of people. And I think that definitely needs to be addressed. Okay, and then the last thing, Glenn, I think you talk out both sides of your mouth, because one, you start off conversation saying that, you know, we spend money frivolously, we don't spend it on the right thing, we don't invest, blah, blah. And when we show you that that it has happened in the past, okay, where communities have done that, people have tried to make advances and pull themselves up and be independent and so forth, and it's taken away from them either by violence or by putting a highway through the Black community, the Black business community, the financial section of the Black community, and therefore destroying it, okay? And then you come back and you say, all you want to do is criticize and say we haven't made any progress. We're trying to make progress. So I think you're contradicting yourself in that instance. And so that's, I'm done.
Thank you, Nancy. Oh, well, this was an interesting discussion. And I, as a facilitator, can say I learned many things. Um, thank you for all your input. And I think everyone has spoke except Nora. Oh, and Michelle.
Peter.
So anyone else?
Peter.
Peter, I don't think.
Peter. Oh, neighbor, I'm sorry. Well, we'll start off with those three, and each one of them have 2 minutes, and the rest of us have 1 minute. Okay. Michelle.
Well, I enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you. And I'll just comment that I just today started listening to, I got back into one of my podcasts called Radio Lab. I'm sure many people have heard of that one. I just started listening to, apparently it's going to be a 4-part episode that just was released last month called I think it's called the Disappearance of Harry Pace. I just started listening to the first episode. It's interesting. It's about a family who just found out that one of their ancestors, a great-great-grandfather, Harry Pace, was actually an African-American man who they all along thought was like kind of a mysterious figure in their past, who they kind of think was white because they only had one photograph of him. Come to find out, he was somebody that apparently has a huge contribution to American society, and he is literally unknown. So I'm just getting into it. We're talking about him and his contribution so far to the American music scene. And apparently he was a huge entrepreneurial type person, but also a cohort of W.E.B. Du Bois. So I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of it. But nonetheless, you know, family history is kind of interesting all around, but to have somebody in your family history that apparently had played a huge part in American culture and society and developments, and not even know that, it just is testament to the fact of how much hidden history we all don't know, and especially how much hidden history of African Americans in this country is literally unknown. So anyway, thank you all and have a great week.
Thank you. Nora? Nora, unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
I was trying. Well, thank you. And I really learned a lot, and I enjoyed hearing everybody's perspective. Just a couple comments about the article. You know, I don't trust history for good reason. And one thing I thought of is, you know, the thing about when about not hearing for 2 years later that slaves were emancipated because of poor communication and lack of communication. I don't trust that. It just seems very planned. And what else? Oh, laughable about DeSantis talking about content of character. Since when did he care about content of character? And I'm concerned about this use of CRT, critical race theory. I think Nancy mentioned about kind of talking about defunding the police, and I just feel like, the CRT is going to just become a big old piece of ammunition to use against people and use against education. And I think that's all I want to say. And I appreciate being welcomed here, and I'll be back.
Oh, that's what I was going to tell you. You will be returning. Okay, thank you. Peter?
Well, I didn't have anything to contribute to the topic of today. I couldn't think of anything that hadn't already been said by somebody else. But I do have an admonition, or let's say a question that I would like to propose to the group. Can we have a session or a couple of sessions on what the heck critical race theory is? We've had all these discussions on various peripheral issues, but it seems to me, I don't recall, maybe you had in the past before I became a member, but I don't think we've ever had a discussion on the actual meaning of critical race theory. It's been brought up many, many times. So can we put that on the agenda for some future meeting? I would not be an expert in the meaning of critical race theory. So if there's somebody in our group who feels like they are an expert in exactly what that is, I would encourage that person to step forward and maybe lead a discussion on exactly what it is.
Okay, from your mouth to the facilitator's ears. I think we got at least 4 set of ears. Okay. Now we begin with the members that spoke frequently. Pedro, we'll begin with you.
Yeah, thanks. I talked a lot today because I missed the last meeting. Anyhow, critical race theory, I think really is ultimately just real history. And I think when we talk about wealth disparity and stuff, one thing that we don't really realize is that wealth owns everything. It owns our history. It owns what's put out over our news and informational channels in a dominant way, and it creates many false understandings and stuff. But there is a real history, an objective history, and that is our duty to kind of research that, I think, a little bit. The thing I just wanted to end the deal with was the Juneteenth is an expression of the words versus deeds, right? So, it took 2.5 years for African Americans in Texas to be realized of their emancipation. In 1954, with the Supreme Court ruling that ended segregation, Malcolm talked 10 years later in 1965 how segregation was everywhere. These are all words, versus the deeds of real action must follow them, or else it's just a shell of a promise. And that's really, I think, what the challenge of Juneteenth is, or can be, is to show these contradictions and to continue to pursue the realization of these movements towards equality. So thank you for the discussion today.
Thank you. Lynn?
I read an article today while looking at other Juneteenth articles, and they quoted a historian named Hansford. I don't have the site in front of me, but he says that critical race theory is a field of study that seeks to uncover the way that race played a central role in how American society is structured. So, in other words, racism is not just a bad person using the N word or attacking a person of color or refusing to rent a house. It's the study of the whole society that is structured to prevent equality of all people, regardless of race. I wanted to say to Glenn, even though the people in our group are successful and prosperous or somewhat prosperous, it doesn't mean we should leave behind those who are not. Who is going to speak for them if it's not us? Thank you for the good topic, Marva, and thank everyone for their contributions.
Thank you. Peter, I see your finger. If we have enough time, I'll get back to you.
It's just a real quick comment, if I may, real fast, just less than a minute.
Okay, Peter.
All right. So within like the space of a minute, I've already heard 2 definitions of critical race theory within as a space of a minute. So that's why I'm confused. Just saying.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Phyllis?
I want to say, I think that this might be one of the best conversations we've had in terms of diversity of thought. And I think we were really on our game today. And Peter, I do think that somebody's going to do critical race theory in the future. And we never let not being an expert stop us from discussing something. So don't worry about that. Thank you, Marva, very much.
Thank you for your suggestion. and making me rethink what I was going to select as a topic. I don't think the other topic would have generated so much discussion. Okay, Cheryl.
Thanks again for everybody with everything. I just heard another definition of critical race theory by a professor that taught at Loyola and UNO and Tulane. And she takes it back years before, so it's that, I think like the word racism, we're gonna find there's gonna be a lot of different comments about it. I hope that Pedro is right and that this new holiday brings awareness and more discussion to everyone. And it's not just a way for us whiteys to get to wear shirts that say June 19th on June 19th and have a picnic and some good barbecue. And I do think that it's really great. I'm just gonna I love when you guys make suggestions. NBC News, July 4th, 2018, had an article with writings by Frederick Douglass on what the American slave is. What to the American slave is the 4th of July, an old writing. And I plan to read that for the 4th of July because there's another twisted holiday. It was really because England stopped slavery that we decided to become an independent country instead of a colony. So we could keep that nasty system going.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
To Leonetta.
It was a wonderful subject. And I wanted to say about Mr. Carson, consider the source about what he said. And also, I want to let everybody know that I did contact Suno, and they're going to send me the information for us to get an intern. And I don't mind filling out the application, but I need to know who I need to get with. Is it you, Phyllis?
I forgot to unmute. Yeah, you can contact me about it and I'll
Okay. All right.
figure something out. Thanks.
Peter.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you doing? Didn't you say you were going to contact the social service department at Xavier?
Oh, did I say I was going to?
Yes, you did.
The fact of the matter is, I don't go into Xavier much anymore these days.
Okay, semi-retired.
I suppose I still could, but and classes are there are very, very few classes during the summer.
Okay.
So
all right, I'll talk
and
to
unfortunately,
you.
in the fall, I am no longer a full-time employee at Xavier. So
okay,
I'll talk to you separately about that.
Okay, thank you. Nancy.
Oh, this is a very good topic, generated a lot of, viewpoints. That's it.
Okay, Glenn.
Very interesting and hot topic. But I also like to let Lynn know that since I was 18 years old, I have dedicated my life to not leaving my people behind, and even on occasion put my life on the line, a life and death matter. So it just that I just don't agree with the always putting so much emphasis on the victim, and I believe in putting more emphasis on what we can do, what is within our power to do, or what we are not doing. And that's my point.
Thank you, Glenn. Mo.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, a wonderful topic. I guess I'm not against the idea of celebrating Juneteenth in terms of the idea of what it represents. My only position is when it's made a federal holiday and the other issues are ignored, like reparations. So, like I said, in Juneteenth, you celebrate it if you want to celebrate, but it's not on my list of hot topics. Reparations is, and until that is, and that has been by Congressman. He was from Detroit. I can't remember his name.
John Conyers.
Yeah, John Conyers. That's been on the table for years, and for some strange reason, is if and for that same length of time, it has been ignored. So until we're having that conversation, Juneteenth, celebrate it if you want to, but it's not an issue for me. But good topic though.
Thank you, Amon. Greer?
Great topic. I find that America only gives to us when it requires nothing of the country. Anything that we've gotten, someone else has always benefit off. And that in essence is the problem. If it costs anything, we can't have it. In critical race theory, I mean, there's like a whole bunch of definitions for that, but it's needed. But America controls the narrative of what we're taught in school. Because if critical race theory was actually taught at some point in time, people would want to do the right thing, and that's not what they want to happen. And the last thing I want to say, I was watching something on television, and a guy who grew up in Tulsa went to HBCU, I think it was Morehouse in the South. And he's sitting in a class where his professor is talking about the Tulsa riot. And he's saying, he's sitting there like flabbergasted, and he raises his hand. And he said, I don't know anything about this. And he's saying, I grew up in Tulsa. It doesn't get any more profound than that. You grew up in a place where something so significant happened, and you had to travel to another state to learn about where you live. That's it.
Thank you very much. Are there any announcements?
Yeah, we're not meeting next week because contrary to Tucker Carlson's opinion, we are still celebrating July 4th in this country. So we will have next Saturday off. And the following Saturday, July 10th, Nancy will facilitate. So bring your A
Also,
games.
yeah, I also would like to say we're also having our board meeting, which begins at 9 o'clock, and everybody is invited to the board meeting. Just because you're not, a board official, does not mean that you can't attend the board meeting. And I really would like everyone to attend.
And you
Okay.
just use the same Zoom link that we send out for the discussion to
Yeah.
log
You
on
just
at 9 o'clock.
Log on at 9 o'clock. We have a lot of issues within the organization, which I think needs to be discussed with everyone who attends the meetings, okay? Because we certainly could use some additional facilitators, people to serve and carry out critical functions. So we'd really like for everybody to attend and listen to what the issues are. Okay?
What
Thank you.
date was that, Nancy?
That is July the 10th
Oh,
at 9 a.m.
We
Yeah, I
get
think
an email.
the
Will the email be sent out for that?
Yes,
Okay.
The email with the discussion
it's the same link.
is use that link.
Okay.
Can
And
I make,
I'll add to that email the board meeting. I'll just put it in there like,
Okay. Thank you.
Don't be afraid to sign up for the facilitators list. I have post-COVID thinking and memory. If I can do it, you all can do it.
Yeah.
Sign up.
okay, I have an announcement too, if I could make it. If we did a show on the radio that on Juneteenth that kind of went through a lot of history along Gigi's comments tonight about convict leasing, around the GI Bill not being given to African Americans at the same rate, and the Social Security Act not benefiting African Americans as well. If anybody's interested in getting a link to that show, they can please feel free to email me, and I can send them a link. I hope that's okay to
No,
announce.
it's fine.
They recommend
What's
those
your-
shows.
What's your email address, Pedro?
It's P Gatos, PGATOS, the number 00 at gmail.com. P Gatos 00.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much for your all of your input. You made my discussion easy. And thanks you, Phyllis.